Hello everyone, my name is Bill Spencer. Thank you for joining today. We are excited to share with you an important set of new features in Microsoft Teams designed to empower shift workers. We call these employees first-line workers. There are 2.5 billion with a B first-line workers worldwide. Traditional first-line workers include retail associates, customer service, and hospitality. It also includes specialists and first responders who work on shifts such as doctors, nurses, police, and firefighters. Together, these employees make the first impression with your customers. They are the first to experience your products either in the manufacturing process, in hospitality, or on the retail floor. And they are the first to represent your organization and your brand. These are first moments that matter to the success of your organization. But unfortunately today, too many first-line workers are encumbered with poor tools to collaborate and communicate. Many are resorting to shadow IT tools such as WhatsApp, or are still relying on paper schedules posted on the wall in the break room. You have the opportunity to change the experience your first-line workers have communicating with your organization using Microsoft Teams. You can make them more connected and more productive and improve their job satisfaction. Over 16,000 organizations are already using the features for first-line workers in Microsoft Teams, and some are reporting fantastic results like better sales and lower attrition. In fact, millions of first-line workers are already licensed for Microsoft Teams, but are not yet using it. So today, many of you can start a pilot at no additional cost. In fact, the call to action from this webinar is to start a pilot of Teams with a set of your first-line workers. If you want to influence the refinement of these features, the Microsoft Teams engineering organization and our partner Kronos, who is the leader in time card management, are interested in supporting a number of these pilots directly. On this slide are the 4 pillars of Microsoft Teams from the perspective of first-line worker. Communications, let me just turn off, there we go. Communications, document management, and industry apps, as well as scheduling. So Teams is really based around communications. It's more than just another app in Office 365. You can create a cultural shift introducing first-line workers to Teams, allowing them to be more connected both to each other and to your organization. Now, there are a lot of options for communicating in Teams. You can enable first-line workers with chatting, with audio calls, and even video calls. Last week, the British retailer Marks & Spencer released a video of how customer service and morale has improved since they deployed Microsoft Teams among their shift employees and store managers. And I'll include a link of that video in the follow-up email to this webinar. The next pillar is document sharing. And I have an anecdote about document sharing. When I was meeting with a large hotel organization, their IT pro asked if the document portion of Teams could be disabled because they felt they already had a good solution for sharing documents with their first-line workers. But when they saw how the employee handbook, support diagrams, and training videos can all be integrated seamlessly with chat on mobile devices, they immediately understood the value of a hub for teamwork, bringing together all the tools for the first-line workers. The third pillar is access to industry apps. Teams has over 300 integrations with third-party applications and a platform on which ISVs and developers in your organization can build and deploy custom line of business applications. Teams offers the option of creating a private store that can be walled off so only the set of applications you have selected are available to your employees. And further, you can specify which sets of employees can see which sets of applications. So you can provide your first-line workers all the tools they need in one easy-to-use hub for teamwork. Now, the fourth pillar is scheduling, and this is really the significant announcement that Microsoft made a couple weeks ago. And the vast majority of first-line workers start their jobs working in a shift. And like many of you, my first job was working in shifts. And I recall how my work life revolved around understanding when I needed to work, which position I was working in, who else was working at the same time. These became important pivots for my job. And whether someone is working in hospitality and retail and manufacturing, in a hospital, or as a first responder, they all share this experience of their work life revolving around a shift. So schedule management is an important part of Teams for first-line workers. With the new Shift app in Teams, your first-line workers will no longer need to rely on a paper calendar hanging on a wall. They can use Teams on any device to confirm their schedule and perhaps trade or pick up another shift and communicate about their shifts with their manager. We've really taken Teams to a whole new level to address the needs of first-line workers. So let's switch over to Teams in the browser. There we go. And I'm going to just switch into Teams here. Perfect. Okay. So many organizations are concerned about the use of WhatsApp and other consumer application or shadow IT tools within their first-line workers, because if someone is separated from the organization, they can be still on a whole number of informal groups that have been created in these apps, and the IT department has no insight into whether these employees are still accessing sensitive information. And the challenge is that if this employee moves to a competitor or is disgruntled, they still have access to this information. Now in Teams, because of its central management, when there's a situation of a separated employee, an IT professional can simply remove that employee from Active Directory, and they no longer have access to Microsoft Teams or any other network resource. Now we're looking at Teams in the web client, and this is the perspective that a shift manager would have as they schedule and communicate with their employees. The employee view is typically from a mobile device, but everything that you're seeing here today is also available on the mobile device. So for example, in the onboarding channel within this retail shop, the scenario is a retail shift manager is communicating onboarding documents with her team members. All this information can be shared right here from within Teams, and these documents are available both as attachments within the conversation stream as well as on the Files tab. And these various tabs are available not only here on the desktop but also on iPad, iPhone, and Android devices. So wherever an employee is, where they have internet access, they can access this information. But the most popular use of Teams is generally in the chat app. And we can see a number of line of business applications, like the company communicator is used for sending out announcements. This would be an example of a line of business application that could be created and deployed within an organization. And you can see all the various popular chat features that are available here as well. Notice we have a chat set up for the floor 1 associates, and I can create can take an existing group chat and rename that to the housewares department, and everyone can communicate and be on the same page. But these are probably the features of Teams that you're already familiar with. Shifts is the new features that are available just in the past month for general availability. And typically when a shift manager is looking at scheduling, they'll be looking at this week view. And let me just go through some of the new features. You'll notice the Shifts app is available here on the app bar. They can set up these various days with groups of employees, managers, cashiers, sales associates, customer service, security, etc. So they've organized their team into various roles, and for each day they have sum of the total hours in that day, and you'll notice the sum of the hours for the entire week is in the upper left. And then there are day notes for a given day. And this is the practice some organizations have of establishing expectations around sales goals and traffic, so that everyone on the shift has an expectation of what will go on. And you'll notice that there's additional tasks that have been called out in a number of these. Retail execs visiting, various tasks that have to get done. And a manager double-clicking on a shift can change some of the aspects, properties of this shift. For example, if they wanted to add training, they can easily select that attribute, set it as being paid, choose a particular hour that they want to put in that training, and they can choose to share that with their employees. And you'll notice the conventions that many various departments have using Excel with a color coding scheme. For example, the blue, the swing shift being in blue, that can be called out as well. So there's a lot of options here just in terms of viewing, but to actually go and schedule, I'm going to pop from the week view into the month view, and looking further out into February, I'll notice that the week of February 10th has not yet been scheduled. Clicking on the copy schedule, I can pull from, let's say, January. Let's take the second week in January, which is probably pretty similar to what I'm trying to schedule here in February, as just a starting point. And I can copy over the shift notes. I'm going to unselect time off because typically that's pretty specific to a given week in the past. But the activities, the open shifts, all of those can be copied over. Clicking on copy schedule. This will take the week of January and place that here in February as a starting place for my customization of this. I can go out and communicate to the employees and say, here's the tentative schedule. Looking at these gray shifts, these are open shifts that an employee can then choose to put in their own shift and make adjustments. And when I'm ready to share this with the team, you'll notice these asterisks show that it is in a draft form. I can click on share it with the team and choose to share it with the entire team or only with the affected employees. So this is the view from the manager's perspective, and this concept of open shifts is a a trend that really is enabled by this cloud-based technology introduced with Microsoft Teams. So you can reduce the burden on the managers and really the friction with employees around assigning specific tasks, specific shifts. Instead, you can, in a sense, have employees choose their own shifts, looking forward several weeks, and then the manager simply comes in and confirms and optimizes that schedule, filling any gaps that might have been created. And this is a more collaborative way of treating employees, similar to sort of the Uber model of scheduling. And it really leads to both better morale, but the whole concept here is employees don't have to go into work in order to find out what their schedule is. They have access to it on any device that the company has allowed them to log in from, and they can easily manage the details of their schedules. They can swap with other employees and communicate with the managers about any changes that they've got coming up. So this is the typical view from a manager's perspective, but now let's share the mobile desktop. Hold on just a second. I'm just bringing up my mobile device and starting the mirroring so we can let's see here. There we go. So we can look at this from an employee's perspective. Great. Okay. So I'm going to start in chat actually. And this is probably a different view than many of you have seen. You'll notice that I have channels and chats combined in the same view. To see this, you can go into your settings under General, and you'll notice this option right here to show channels in the chat list. So you can see that we're really working to simplify the experience in Teams. Notice also we only have these three apps across the bottom: Chat, Shifts, and Activity. And this is a default configuration for Firstline workers that an Office 365 administrator has set up using a security group, including the Firstline workers, and the configuration of what the default apps are that they'll see. So our goal here is to simplify the experience so much that there is no major training required in order to introduce the Firstline workers to Microsoft Teams. And clicking on the channel that I was in earlier on the desktop view, I can see all of the same information. I can click on Files and Tabs and see I'll have one-click access to the Employee Handbook, to SharePoint, to OneNote, to other files. And this makes it very easy for an employee to have one place to get all the information that they need about onboarding or training, etc., within the organization. I can also, from the same view, look at all the various chats that I'm in. For example, I can see this group chat. And you'll notice that we've introduced a whole set of additional, almost consumer-like applications or features. So for example, clicking on this post, I have, in addition to like, additional emotional reactions. But notice this new feature of a read receipt. So in addition to these consumer features that are familiar to anyone who uses Facebook Messenger, we also have a back-end infrastructure that an enterprise would require. So read receipt is tied to a database on the back end. And for example, if there was a HR or legal misunderstanding and a manager needed to know whether an employee had read a particular message, they would be able to track that using the read receipt database. So that's a great example of how Microsoft is combining both intuitive consumer features with enterprise capabilities. And our partner Kronos is using the development environment that Teams has created to integrate their app, and you can see that there is a number of options in this bot. You can see how many hours you've worked. You can report a sick day. You can record your punches. You can look up your vacation hours and your schedule. All of that is available right from this Kronos bot. For those employees that are looking for easy ways of communicating with their colleagues and their managers, we have now this microphone, the notice feature in the lower right for sending voice messages. Here's an example of one I sent earlier. And we also have some additional options, such as this praise bot, where I can call out a particular capability here and thank Miriam for her leadership. And send that off. So, our goal is to make it both easy as well as a compelling experience for first-line workers. Now, the big productivity savings is not just in communications, but as we were talking about earlier, it's also in the area of shifts. So all of those capabilities that we're showing from the manager's view from the desktop are visible here on the mobile device. And clicking on one of these, I can see where that training was scheduled. If you recall, I scheduled that earlier. And I can offer to swap with another member of the team. And let's try swapping with Patty here. And I can put in, doctor's appointment, and click done, and send that request to my manager for approval, or directly to Patty. If the setup is that employees can swap directly, that can be sorted out right here. If I want to look at all the various requests I have put in, I can see those, and I can choose additional, looking for open shifts, swapping or offering a shift, taking time off, etc., all from right from this app. And when employees bring their own devices, their own iPhone or Android devices, it's at no additional cost to add them for them to download and install Teams. So there's a Teams license which is included with F1 and higher licenses in Office 365, but to install the app is at no additional cost. So with the appropriate login, they can use their own devices. In fact, in the case of Marks and Spencer, they've deployed that on their via bring your own device. So their employees have chosen that themselves. Now the other thing I wanted to show is just scrolling up from the app bar at the bottom, that the simple version of Teams can be available, but if an administrator wants to offer additional options to the set of employees with this default view, they can have what we call pinned apps, where additional options can be added or viewed. So for example, if I just want to look at my saved items, I can just slide up and click on save, just like that. If I wanted to have the calling features, again, if these are enabled, I could pull that in. I can also, if an Office 365 admin has allowed me to, I can change my default settings. So for example, I could, clicking on this, we call it the hamburger here on the right side, I can take my saved items, for example, as one app, and pull that up above. Let's just drop it right there. And you'll notice that now I have 4 apps in the app bar below. And moving that back down, I can get back to my 3 apps on the app bar. So this means that teams can start in a very simple way to get people started in a pilot, and then it can advance as as the employee is ready to take on additional capabilities. They can expand the user experience in Teams in a very intuitive way, and either have the additional features available just by sliding up, or by customizing the set of apps across the bottom as they become more familiar with Teams, or perhaps their experience, their job requirements expand and they need to have more capabilities. Those capabilities are available. And this set of applications can include your ISV or custom line of business applications for your organization. So this is an example of how extensible and customizable Microsoft Teams is. So I'm going to switch back to the presentation and just sort of wrap up. Thank you, for your time today. And I just want to emphasize that these features are available in Microsoft Teams right now. So I really encourage you to pilot this set of features with your Firstline workers. And as I mentioned, Microsoft and our partner Kronos are interested in working closely with a set of customers to get their feedback and refine these features as we get more and more Firstline workers using Teams. So if you are interested in getting support directly from Microsoft Engineering, please email worker@microsoft.com and let me know what your plans are, what you're thinking about in terms of a pilot program for Firstline workers. And I'll get back to you, and we will try to work out a program together to introduce Teams to your Firstline workers. Now, there may be others in your organization. Typically, my team works most closely with the IT professionals who set the policies for information workers. And there may be others in your organization who are really responsible for the software for Firstline workers. Please have them sign up for the webinars, for the upcoming webinars. And if you have any feedback on this session, you can go to aka.ms/Teams Firstline worker feedback. Now with that, I'm going to switch over to the console here and see what questions I can answer. So tasks and Graph API are coming. Alexander, thank you for that question. I don't have release dates for that, but you can expect that coming soon. There's a lot of features that are capable today in Teams, so I wouldn't wait for tasks or the Graph API. But and we do have Graph API support in general, but I think this question is specific to these new capabilities, such as task being supported in Graph API, and those are coming probably later this quarter. But I don't want to set expectations too high on that. That's definitely our goal. let's see, what about a work time start button and collecting locations of workers like we have? Okay, in Staff Hub now. Yes, so our goal is to have all of the capabilities of Staff Hub available in Teams within this quarter, and to have a set of migration tools available for our Staff Hub customers to move over to Teams. So we would expect that to be coming out this quarter. Let's see, how Microsoft look at migration. Okay, so that's, yeah, so I think I've answered all those questions. If there are any other questions, please enter them here. Otherwise, I was going to switch over to this Marks and Spencer video so we can see how a major retailer is using Teams today for their first-line workers. Great, so let me just check back to see if there's additional questions. Okay. Oh, sorry about that. Thanks for giving me the heads up on that, Brad, that the audio and the video is choppy. I apologize for that. Let me just do this. Let me copy this link in. So that you can check it out yourself. Let's try that one more time. There we go. Great. Well, thank you all for your time. And again, if you are interested in a pilot, being supported by the engineering team. Email worker@microsoft.com. And thank you all very much for your time today.